Okay, welcome back. We're on page 164 talking about method chaining, which means we create our own version of onCreate and then turn right around and do the super version of onCreate, which means go do what the official one is and then come back and do our unofficial version. Okay? So on page 165, they start talking about the life cycle. So typically, an application has only one activity. That's not technically true, but from our perspective, yes, that's always going to be the case. So if you start another application, Android is going to suspend the one that you've got because things are different. In the Android world, there is no overlapping windows, right? Like right now, I've got a image viewer guy, and I've got a window on top of it. Okay, there's no such thing in the Android world. They don't have a back button. Okay, I mean they don't have an exit button. They don't have, you know, the red X where you close off an application. They don't have tiling. They don't have overlapping windows. All these other things. So when something overlaps something, it's going to consume. So Android essentially is a full-time full screen app. No matter what it's running, that's the one that's going to be in the foreground. Everything else is paused and not running. Now, technically, there's a different class of application called service that runs without a graphical user interface, but that's not what we're doing. So all the applications that we write, whenever we come in and create something, then it's going to completely obliterate whatever was previously running on the phone and put our stuff on the phone. Okay, that's how that thing works. All right, so we don't really have a menu item for close, but we do have a back button. Okay, the back button if you're at the beginning of the application, back from the beginning means close your application. So it's kind of sort of like a red X close, not really. Now here's the funky part is when you suspend an application, if it's a big hog of an application, you know, monstrous amount of memory and CPU use, the operating system itself might just decide, you know, that suspended app we got over there, I think we're going to just kill that guy off. Now, you don't have any control over this. Isn't that weird? Now, let that sink in a minute. A running application gets obscured because you're running your app here that I don't know, whatever that previous one we just did, and then you want to check the weather. When you click the weather button and the weather pops up, our application is completely suspended. And if the weather app consumed an awful lot of resources, the machine was getting a little hungry, it could say, hey, I'm killing off this other dude behind the scenes, and you don't have control. Now, that is doggone strange, but it happens in our world. Okay, so how in the world is it possible that when I am finished with a weather app, how is it possible that I get everything back the way it was if it got killed off? Ooh, that's what we're about to learn in this chapter. That's what this is all about. Okay, so what happens is if you have a text view and you have a edit text guy, the machine is going to automatically save that stuff so that if it gets killed and then brought back to life, it'll pick up exactly where it left off. Now, it won't do that for absolutely every control, and so you have to kind of be careful about which controls get automatically saved and which ones don't, and we'll talk about that again shortly. Okay, on page 166, they start talking about this. This is the Android application lifecycle. And yeah, you're basically going to have to know this. I mean, not memorize it necessarily, but you need to understand what's going on. So let me go through it. So I launch an application by clicking on an icon. And then the onCreate works. Now, the onCreate is only one of these, so it only happens once. And then, so that's where you do the low-level stuff, like assigning variables. And then it goes to the start thing. And then it goes to resume, and you're going, what? It's going to resume before it, I mean, what am I resuming from? Well, it's just safe to say you may have been paused, so I'm going to go through resume. Now, if you have not been resumed, it's going to go through this step pretty doggone quick. But see how it goes from start to resume, and then your activity is up and running. And then another activity goes to the foreground, like you check the weather. Boom. You're paused. Boom. Your application is no longer consuming any CPU resources. It's still there in memory, but it's not consuming any resources. You close the weather app and boink, it goes back to resume. So the resume probably won't have anything to do the first time through this loop, but it is possible that resume could have some other things. Now, if it's paused, it is possible that while it's in the pause state, the operating system says, hey man, I need that memory. And the machine's going to look around and go, well, I see 5 applications that are paused. This one over here looks like a pig. I'm going to kill him off. And so it might kill it off. And so when you return, there's nothing there to return, and your application is, honest to God, really killed. And when you navigate back to the application, it has to start over from scratch as if you launched it from the first time. And then once again, you don't have control. So if you made it to here and my activity is no longer visible for some reason, which means it's not just paused, it is completely stopped. And then, again, the machine could say, well, okay, this one's not only just paused, it's completely stopped. I'm going to go ahead and kill it, or if the user navigates to it, it'll go to a restart. And then, tidying up at the very end is this thing called onDestroy. Now, typically, onDestroy we won't be using that for anything, but yeah, you could be writing an application that had, I don't know, like an internet resource where you're connecting to the network or something, and you want to close that connection manually. Well, the onDestroy would be how you would do that. Okay, so let's just go through it one more time. First of all, it looks like that resume is out of place, but it's not. I tried to explain it the best I can. It goes through the resume cycle, and if there's nothing to resume, it's no harm. Just moves on. Okay, one more time. You have very little control on whether or not an app is paused, stopped, or destroyed. Because either one of those, paused is up for grabs, stop is really up for grabs, and then it could be destroyed. Okay. So, once again, let's contrast this to how this is different than running Windows. Okay, in Windows, I can minimize and maximize an app. Nah, not in Android. It's a full screen every time. So there's no minimize, there's no maximize. There's no close button, there's no resize, there's no repositioning, there's no overlapping, there's no foreground and background. Because, well, there is, but it's slightly different because now background is eligible for whacking. Either whack on pause or whack on stop, either one. Okay, so this is a thing that you're probably going to have to learn to be able to make sense of this. I'm going to go through it one more time. This time we're really talking about what it is you do in each one of these things. In onCreate, that's where you attach your variables to the resources, like we just did. That's where you do the set content view. You pick the view you want. Okay, those are the 2 things that happen. Okay? On start is when the thing is first run. Typically, a normal application, probably you won't need on start, most likely. Resume. Resume is going to be if you have data that needs to be restored. This is where you would do it. The opposite on pause would be, oops, something happened. Either somebody navigated away, or something else popped up, or the guy clicked on the weather app. Well, then this would be the place where I would store my data if I need to, because I don't know if I'm ever coming back. I mean, when I get to pause, I could be killed. On stop, this is where, okay, now I know I'm not coming back now. I mean, I know. Once you get this point, I ain't coming back. And so this is where you would do some cleanup. Get rid of any resource files and things like that. Okay. On restart, this is like, oops, I was kidding. I didn't actually want to stop. So get me back as quick as possible. And it goes directly to that on start guy. On destroy, we rarely ever do anything with on destroy. Okay, on page 170, they talk about coding the Lifecycle demo app. And so that's what we're going to be doing. I'm not going to be doing it exactly the way they did it because, I don't know, they're kind of weird. So instead, I'm going to be using my own technique. So let's get back to the application first. And let's go to activity main. And I'm going to paste a bunch of stuff because I just don't like typing, right? Okay, in my paste buffer is all of this stuff. And of course, the machine's never heard of this before. Fine, let's fix that. Import this. Import this. And basically, I've got everything they had except for inside my onCreate. So I'm just going to copy one of these and put him in here and make a couple of changes. So this is now going to read onCreate. Okay, so I'm going to run this guy and let's see what he does. There we are, Lifecycle demo, and it starts popping up already. It talks about, hey, it went through all three of those. It went through create, start, resume. Did you see it down at the bottom? And boing, 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 one thing at a time. If I go over and look at my my logcat, and I'm going to go ahead and change this. I'm going to tell it that I only want info. And I only want the thing that says info. So right now I've got on create, on start, and on resume. Cool. All right. Now I'm going to go back to my my guy here, and I'm going to just see what other background apps are out there. Well, that one's been destroyed. Jeez, I keep destroying things. I'm trying to find something a little better. There we go. Cool. I'm at settings. Okay, so what's going on? Did you see the on stop happen? Okay. Did you see where here it went through and said I was in create, start, and resume. Now I'm in pause and stop because I've obliterated it. That kind of makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my guy and pick the running app, which should be this guy. There he is. And so now he should go through it again. It says, okay, I'm on stop. Now I'm on start. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now, let me show you something that's a little funky that you might not be thinking about. And that is, I'm going to rotate the screen. Okay. And let's go see what it just did. It went through and did a stop, a destroy, a create, a start, and a resume. Are you telling me that when I rotate my device, it absolutely, positively kills it off and destroys it, and then turns right around and rebuilds it from scratch? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, this is something that you're just going to have to get around your head. These kind of things are just kind of sort of complex. Okay. We're going to override some additional methods on page 176. So I want the one that says on, well, I'll tell you what. Yeah. If I want to create a menu for my app, I need to do some extra stuff. So in addition to, I don't know why this is in the Lifecycle section, it just is. Hang on a second. Okay, on page 176, they talk about some other methods that need to be overridden. But they built theirs using the simple rather than the empty one. So we don't have those guys. So we're just going to do it by hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to create us a brand new menu. So if I go here to resources and I go and I say new, and of course it's a resource. And what's this going to be? It's going to be a menu. So I click menu. And I guess it doesn't really matter what it's called. I'm going to call mine main_menu. Doesn't really matter, right? Cool. And so I'm going to kind of speed things up by just, copying and pasting code, just like we've done before. So I'm just going to light this up and go, boink. Okay, so trust me, this is what I did, but we're running out of time.